bike ride. You guys have a good day.
I think that's what Sam already did this morning.
Yeah, I think so. Look at him. No glasses, no hat. He's all ready to go at 8 a.m. What a fine, they say people get in radio or journalism because they're not made for TV. Well, you can take that stereotype and throw it out the window. The dapper, debonair Sam Amick from The Athletic joining us. Good morning, pal.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, whose idea was Zoom and radio, like the worst mix of all time? Like let us live.
Right? Yeah. Let us live. Let us raise the roof in private.
What's up, guys? Nice to see you, Dave. I'm glad you're feeling better, buddy. That sounded pretty brutal.
It did. In fact, I remember when you called me to check in on me, that was a pretty emotional conversation.
I texted you.
Sam, he's got a bat in the house. He's not okay right now.
Brother,
nobody who wants COVID wants a phone call. Like you're.
It's a good point.
I don't know if you're awake. I don't know.
It's a good point.
Your energy level.
Sam, it's just been a while. I got a lot saved up. But I do have a bat in the house. That is the truth. You remember the rat about 5 years ago?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're like the wrong kind of nature animal guy here.
Did you know that rabies, if you get symptoms, is almost 100%? It's like 99% fatal. Like, did you know that? I didn't know that till yesterday.
No.
Yeah.
So what's the danger of rabies with this little vampire in your house?
Well, it says if you get scratched or bit, like obviously get the shots, but it also says like legitimately, I'm not making a joke. It's like, but if you have a bat in the house and you're a heavy sleeper, like you can get it through mucous membranes. So maybe it like they're implying like it lands on your face or something or brushes up against you. Now we're pretty sure that the bat left yesterday, but I'm sitting here still as a dad because I was not home during the whole thing. I was on my way home with Mason. The girls were here, and I'm sitting here going, God, do they go get raped? Even though like there was no contact. Like do you just go get the shot just to be sure?
I mean, if it's 99%, I think the answer is probably yes. As a side note that you just made me think of, I'm not normally like I've become more of a napper as I've gotten older. I'll take naps, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty confident that I have the type of like, if the, what do you call it? Just to block the sun out, the eye shade thing. I have the type that you would never purchase after this experience. My eye shade is in the shape of a bat.
What?
I don't know. My wife bought it at one point. It looks like, and I put it on, and it looks like Batman. But it would give you PTSD at this point.
I think it would. Plus an eye shade. And Jason, I see people wearing these on the plane and stuff. I don't know.
Hotel thing for me. If I would travel and you'd be in this hotel where the windows don't have blackout curtains, and I mean, again, first world problems, but when we cover games till 2 a.m, sometimes you want to get a little sleep in the afternoon to charge up. So that was the inspiration for it. But the bat thing would probably just give you nightmares.
All right, Jason, back to you.
Back to you, Sam. The news that I don't know, about an hour ago, I know, Dave, this kind of broke, was about Karl Anthony Towns. Let's start with that injury. Obviously significant in the big picture. The year the T-Wolves have had, it's relatively new news, but I don't know what you can share on that and maybe what the T-Wolves are looking at with this injury. So
I will yield to my friend and colleague, John Krasinski, who covers the Timberwolves very closely and very well. It seems as if Karl and the team are trying to get clarity on treatment, clarity on, time. I for sure think that he's going to miss time. I mean, this is one of those weird ones where admittedly, Shams broke it and identified the injury as a torn meniscus, and then ESPN had indicated that it was a meniscus injury and almost acted as if he might not miss time.
What was that?
It's my rude son yelling in the background. Sorry.
Oh, okay, I got you. That's fine.
Just kidding. Love you, kid. So, he's going to miss time. I don't know how much, but for a team that has been, living kind of the Cinderella life this year and playing so well, and Karl being an all-star and a huge part, not only of their team, but an offense that has been one of their weak spots, the idea of them losing a guy like that who's second on the team in scoring and who's had a very good year is pretty bad.
Well, and the other injury, not as, let's be honest, not as possibly earth-shaking in the world of the NBA as Karl Anthony Towns, but almost within minutes of each other. The announcement that Ben Simmons will also miss the rest of the season, a nerve impingement in his back. And I hate to say it, Sam, I know the Ben Simmons jokes fly all over the place. I've never particularly liked that. We talked about this earlier. I always felt like he was a little bit bullied. But we're now getting, and I 100% not making light of this, but almost like Brandon Roy category, where we're starting to look at this guy in Ben Simmons, who no doubt is ridiculously talented, but you're starting to wonder, Sam, if this guy's ever going to be able to physically get it together and get back even to where he was before.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. And I was looking down at my phone to confirm his age, 27 years old. You know, I feel for him. Like you said, he's become a punchline just in the online basketball NBA community. But, you know, you go back to the Nets days where, you know, where they were counting on him and waiting on him and hoping that he was going to be part of a title contender, in Philly before that. It's been a brutal 4 or 5 year stretch, and big picture, bigger than basketball, I guess. I do feel for a guy who, you know, was the number one pick and whose identity is completely wrapped up in this being what his life and career were going to look like. And, you know, as that door continues to close, you know, way premature in terms of what he thought it was going to be, you know, what does that look like? I mean, that's not to go too deep again, but it's funny lately. I've just had a lot of conversations with players and people around the game about that concept, about whether you're 27 or you're Klay Thompson at 34. Just that idea of guys or women's, you know, vision of their career, any sport, whatever, just falling well short of what they expected and what that does to them as people, no matter what their bank account might look like. So that's kind of where my head goes with Ben, is that, you know, this is just a very long haul where he has been letting the basketball world down, you know, so to speak. And I'm sure that's not easy.
Sam Amick from The Athletic joining us, as he does each and every Thursday at this time. Sam, obviously we've been spending a lot of time on the Kings. The constant up and down, the stops and starts kind of have been the characterization of this season. A couple nights ago, as rough of a loss as you can imagine at home, up 22, losing that one to the Bulls. And then last night down early and completely turning that game around and continue to show their control over the Lakers. You know, we kind of do our week-to-week check-in on what you think about the Kings, but this roller coaster continues. But what do you think about what's gone on here lately with Sacramento?
Yeah, I mean, I you know, the roller coaster part, I think this might have been on your guys' show, but, you know, somebody made me laugh the other day where they said, you know, well, roller coasters are fun. Dave, that might have been you. Yeah. And it's, you know, and this for Kings fans is not.
Thank you for listening, by the way. Thank you for listening.
Active
Appreciate
listening.
That. Yeah, that's nice.
I think it was YouTube too. I was trying to make sure you guys looked okay. You know what I mean?
It's you.
Yeah, the roller coaster continues. I didn't watch that one very closely. I was at the Warriors Bucks game last night. But you know, I mean, you look at the box and De'Aaron's dropping 44 and Domas got a triple double, and Kings fans, I'm sure, by the way, enjoyed yet again the subplot of Sabonis getting the best of Anthony Davis. But then it's like, okay, then why are you, you know, dropping the game to the Bulls the other day? And then how is it going to look tonight against San Antonio without Wemby? It's funny. This will not make Kings fans feel better, but Warriors fans are going through a little bit of the same exact thing. Like last night when now granted, Warriors are on a better stretch, but when they took it to the Bucks last night, there were jokes in the press room about, okay, how many are they going to lose to the Bulls to, you know, by tonight? They have Chicago in town. So that's partly just kind of how the West is right now. The parity, Dave, your face cracked me up. Sorry. Noises on the computer.
Yeah. Sorry. ADD. Go ahead.
You're good. I've really got to learn how to mute Slack while we talk. Podcast planning is happening at the moment, in case you wondered. So, you know, Kings they're talented. They can beat anybody. And objectively, since I don't have any rooting interest, I think they're going to be incredibly interesting, assuming they get into the postseason, which is not enough. You know, they got to be careful not to get uninvited to that party, but they're going to be really interesting because they actually could beat, a Minnesota or an Oklahoma City in a first round matchup. If the matchup fell that way, but they could also lose to anybody.
Yeah. And Sam Amick joining us. That is very realistic to see coming, that the hot take du jour, and I'm not making fun of it, it's actually a good take. It's a very accurate take, but it will be the hot take du jour at this rate. It's going to be, they'll do all the previews of all the Bostons and Milwaukees and Minnesotas and Oklahoma Cities and Denvers. And then there's going to be the sleeper team. And Sacramento is going to end up being the sleeper team du jour, and it's going to show, this is a record against, the top opponents in the West, and they lead in the road wins and da-da-da-da-da. And it's a good place, I guess, to be in a sense. It'd just be nice if half the fan base didn't have to, be wearing a neck brace from the whiplash we've had all year. You lose to a Jimmy Butler-less Miami. You beat the Clippers in LA, and then you lose to the Bulls without Zach LaVine, and then you beat the Lakers in LA, and Milwaukee on the road blowing that lead. I mean, people listen to the show know I could list off 20. This is just the most, what did we say earlier, Jason? Predictably unpredictable Kings team I remember.
Yeah, and I think, the tweet, again, maybe you, Dave, somebody, but like the unpredictability being the only predictable part.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And it's disappointing, I'm sure, for Kings fans, because even though they lost to the Warriors in the first round last year, I think there was certainly some pride in the fact that, like, wow, they not only got in the playoffs, but they were a third seed, and you felt like, job well done. You still have to tip your cap to what they did last season in the regular season. You can say you accomplished something, and that cannot be taken away. Now, this regular season, if it ends the way that it looks like it likely will, with them either in the play-in, or sneaking in as a 6, is going to have a different vibe to it. And then, of course, the hypothetical comes in. Like, guess what? I bet you Kings fans get over it if they win a first-round matchup. But that is the reality. The West it's cliche, but it's true a lot of years. The West is wild. Yeah. And once you get past, even those top 2 teams are incredibly gettable. And now with the Towns injury, the Clippers falling off a bit, the Nuggets are still the Nuggets, but there's just, there's a lot of teams that are on the same level.
Sam, one guy that continues to put up great numbers. And I know, do you have a vote for 6 man of the year?
I do. Yep.
Okay, I don't know where, you don't have to tell us who you're picking if you want. But
yes, yeah.
Oh, I guess you do. But Malik Monk certainly is making his case, and maybe it's a 2-part thought here, is where you think he ranks among that. And secondly, yesterday we talked to John Ireland, the Lakers voice, and he basically told Dave and I how much they enjoyed him. The Lakers loved him, but they got to a spot where they couldn't pay him, and Sacramento swept in and got him. I'm a little concerned about Malik's future here just because of some limitations the Kings will have, and him being a free agent. I could picture not only his year he's having, he might win 6 man of the year, that he is going to be a hot commodity in the free agent market. What do you think that'll look like for Malik?
Yeah, that is where, again, the Kings story gets trickier in the summer, because he would have, I think, a lot of suitors. He's a hell of a scorer. Reminds me of Jamal Crawford, a guy who obviously might as well have the 6-man statue, etched with his name on it. That being said, I wonder from a voting standpoint, if in fact he's going to win it. I heard him the other day speaking super confidently about how he thought he had it wrapped up. I know he's around 15 plus points a game. Am I accurate there?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
But the one thing I think voters, for better or worse, have shifted the way they look at 6-man. And I don't think it's funny. Like, once Jamal won it, I think his record is 4 times. It was almost as if there was this voter backlash where, in that community of which I'm obviously a part, that there was this sense of like, okay, we got to look a little bit deeper than just the guy who scores the most off the bench. And it shouldn't just be a bucket getter. And the other day, and maybe I'm looking at something that's more anecdotal than reflective of the whole voting base, but I listened to a podcast that I enjoy and it was pretty in depth with Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue. And, it's a good listen if people have interest, but they gave their 6-man votes And if I remember correctly, it was like, man, Malik got 1 third place vote out of those 2 guys. And I forget exactly who they had up top, but, some of the usual suspects with Norm Powell and Bobby Portis. And I mean, there was even an Al Horford mention in there, which, so I don't know. I feel like it could be kind of wide open. If you look at it from a conventional standpoint, Malik for sure fits that profile. And because I live here, I see it all the time. And yes, to me, when you have a guy who can go literally give you 40 on a night when your franchise centerpiece is off, like they've had a handful of those nights when Fox wasn't feeling it and Malik saved the day. I mean, he ultimately could be the guy I vote for. I haven't broken it down just yet, but I think he's in the running for sure.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Sounds like someone's not voting for Malik Monk right now. By the way, we talked about this yesterday. Amazingly enough, and I know this obviously has nothing to do, or certainly should have nothing to do with your vote or anyone else's, but Sam, I think he's the front runner for the 6th man of the year. I'm obviously Purple Glass is super biased. What I was surprised to learn, though, is I went and looked at a combination of odds from most of your major bookies out there. And not only is Malik Monk favored to win 6th man, but just a brief explanation for those who aren't bettors, you would have to bet $340 to win $100. He's minus 340. The runners up, Norman Powell, Bobby Portis, and Karis LeVert, plus 1,000, meaning if you bet $100, you'd win $1,000. Now, again, for those who aren't really, big time gambler folk, those are massive. Like, to say that he is a massive Vegas favorite to win 6th man, that surprised me. And I don't necessarily disagree with you, by the way, that it shouldn't just be the guy who scores the most points. You got to look at everything. I do think 1 third place vote, though, that's rough acting to acting, dude. Well,
and full disclosure, that particular podcast is incredibly deep on analytics. And I don't say that as any, pejorative at all. That's actually why I loved the heck out of it, because they really dove in the numbers. One of them had, my memory's failing me, but one of them had Bogdan Bogdanovic, number 1, which admittedly surprised me. And I'm not, to be fair, I know you're just kidding around. I'm not saying I won't vote for Malik. I'm admitting that, like, I need to dive in and do the research beyond the fact that, like, holy ass, Malik is pretty good off the bench. Like, I see that all the time. I know that. But the other thing that I think is actually an interesting conversation, kind of more broadly, is the fact that part of my cynicism about Malik getting it is that this Kings season has kind of become the one where everybody is very comfortable overlooking everything they do. It just is. You know what I mean? Like, Sabonis not making the All-Star team, the discussion about where they are in the West, the record, as you guys know, is actually not that far off from where it was last year, but the optics are such that, nationally or kind of even globally, the idea is that they are falling well short of expectation. And when that happens, it's the opposite effect of what they experienced last year. Like, before I jumped on today, you guys had the drop talking about Mike Brown, coach of the year, and they gave us this and they gave us that. Well, like, the idea right now is that they haven't actually given that much, but part of that is the way they get talked about. And with all that in mind, I could see people seeing Malik on the ballot and being like, oh no, it's a negative year for the Kings, so we'll see.
Yeah, it just shows you too. I mean, I guess it's back to what we've kind of talked about in general. Sam, you're right. I did look at it. They're just 1 game off of last year. So they're 35-26 last year. At this time, they're 36-25. We know the difference. They were 3rd, but also not only were they 3rd, the rest of the West wasn't nearly this good. So, I mean, if the Kings are 7th, or let's go to the bottom, the Lakers are 10th. They're 4 games above 500. I mean, that would have put them, closer to about that 5th spot at this time last year. So just the group overall is better, yet the Kings have roughly the same record. But you're right, they're looked at completely differently this year, even though you could make the argument if we all agree the league is that much better and they're right there, why wouldn't that mean they were a better team? But I get why people don't, because of back to the roller coaster theme we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that last point is valid, Jay, because, I mean, if tougher competition and you're still staying even is not a bad thing. And if you're a Kings fan and you don't, like Dave, who, stresses out so much over this stuff, like, if you don't want to lose any sleep, just take solace in the fact that, like, they're hanging in there and they have a year of playoff experience under their belt. And conceivably that could mean that things might go a little bit better this time around when they hit that stage. Like, you don't know, but that world does exist where you look back on this year and go, man, they actually, like, you know, they kind of kept the momentum going, and then something good happened in the playoffs. I mean, that is possible, even if the optics and the conversation around them right now is, you know, so largely negative.
Sam Amick joining us. I do stress out about this stuff, and it is weird because ultimately,
you gave yourself COVID, probably just worried about
exactly,
and maybe rabies. We don't know yet.
Yes.
Sam Amick joins us. They are one game off of last year, and the emergence of the Oklahoma Cities and the Minnesotas have been quite interesting to watch. And I want to ask you about Oklahoma City. I read an article yesterday that compared Oklahoma City favorably at this point to the beginning of the Golden State Warriors dynasty. And whether you agree with that or not, I thought it was incredibly interesting. I'm in love with Sam Presti. I have been forever, Sam. And are you watching, like me and a lot of others, over these next few years, and how interesting it will be? You have a small market team that arguably has the best combination of roster and stockpile of any other team in the NBA, including the Celtics, to see just exactly how the cap and how the financial constraints of the NBA work with this squad, and if they'll, I shouldn't say be allowed, but I'll say it, you know what I mean, be allowed to win a championship in OKC.
I am. I mean, first of all, you know, I'm just concerned that I'm not your favorite Sam anymore. I mean, the love letter
He's my favorite NBA Sam.
He's done a great job. I mean, honestly, the idea that you lose Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden before that, and then, you know, turn it into this. I might have shared this story on the show before, but it was around this time a year ago, maybe 14 months, where I had a note indicating that rival teams of the Thunder, you know, were increasingly hopeful that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would be tired of the losing and ultimately be available. And rest assured, I was given a lot of grief by the Thunder for that reporting. Now, that was the case, but, you know, they had more confidence in what the future looked like than I did and what other teams did. And they certainly are getting the last laugh now because he is the center of a pretty special thing out there. And I don't know where it's all going because, yeah, eventually you have to pay the Jalen Williams and the Shays and the Chet Holmgrens and all the way down the line. But they have got optionality for days. They have a draft cupboard that is more full than anybody in the NBA. And I'm happy about it from the small market standpoint. And Kings fans should be too, because it's another little story where it says it doesn't matter if you're in Chicago or New York. But, you know, we'll see where it goes. The thing, you know, I don't ever remember having a franchise that had the ability to go out and get a star player of really any caliber, but that actually has to be pretty careful, I think, to make the wrong move, because what they have now in the here and now is so special. So again, good problems to have, very good team, but the playoffs, I think, are going to dictate their story and what they do next.
I think, Sam, they're the one of the few teams that, you know, when people say, oh, people are untradeable, I think everybody is if the price is right. I think OKC would have the young talent on their roster and the future draft assets to honestly get anybody. The question is, to your point, would it be the right move? Yeah,
because how many superstar trades have we seen, you know, in the last 10 years that just didn't pan out the way that people thought? You know, I think if all was right in the NBA world, the league should give the Thunder like a one-time cap boost to make up for the way they lost Kevin Durant to the Warriors. If you guys remember, and I know you do, you know, like the TV rights deal kicking in right when Kevin Durant was a free agent was the number one reason that the Warriors got him. And the Thunder probably would have lost him anyway, but that was a tough pill for them to swallow at that point. And, you know, again, that city and that market, if you have terrible Thunder basketball, that's a pretty miserable sports market. You know, they have Oklahoma college sports nearby, and that matters. But the Thunder have been become the lifeblood of the city sports wise for quite some time now. And I'm pleasantly surprised that is back even after all those future Hall of Famers have left.
Sam, we're up against it. I wanted to ask you this, knowing you were coming on today. I'll leave the name out of it. You may or may not know who. It's not from basketball, but a prominent journalist said earlier this week, I think it was on a TV show, he was talking about how in each sport there's your go-tos for the contract, trades, newsbreakers. We all know who those are. And he said, quote, when agents send a group text to all the folks who are clamoring to be the first ones to win the thumb race to Twitter with the details, the reporters don't ask questions. They don't push back, because you know what happens when you push back? I found out you don't get those texts anymore. Now, as somebody who's at the highest levels of sports reporting, do you think there's validity to that quote?
Who said or wrote that again, Dave?
It was Mike Florio. I was leaving the name out just to not put you in a spot, but it was Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk who said that.
Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to press there.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I would say generally, I mean, yes. And we always have these media discussions, and I will be honest and candid because I'm allowed to be at this point in my career. Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I am relieved to not have any pressure to keep up on that part of the industry anymore. Certainly not going to, speak about our operation, but the news breaking thing in general, like, yeah, let's say you get the group text, hey, 5 for 35 million for so-and-so, no player option, right back, why didn't you get a player option? Like,
right. Right.
There's no, like, what happened with this? What happened? Like, no, just, there is, I think, that there's a communication line that is either going to be open or it's not. And yes, agents, teams, PR people, control is just a massive theme when it comes to media coverage. People constantly trying to control either the information. And that's why a lot of times you'll see 7 years for 90 million. And then you'll find out it's actually 7 for 72. With a bunch of unlikely bonuses, but it got reported that way initially. It might get cleaned up on the back end, but the agent got what they wanted for their own publicity purposes, which is a moment where players around the league said, oh man, 90 million, good job. So yeah, that's part of it. And part of the thing I've enjoyed about this job the last 6 years is like navigating within all that and not caring. And you piss a lot of people off along the way. You get uninvited from group texts. But we are here to actually tell the fans and the readers what's really happening. So that should remain the focus.
And that's why we love him. That's why he is my second favorite basketball Sam Amick of The Athletic. We always appreciate you coming on each and every week, friend. And we'll talk to you next week.
All right, Batman. Thank you, Jay.
Wow. It'll be in my head all day. Thank you. That's Sam Amick. We'll take a break. When we come back,